Okay, so how on earth do you even begin to measure something as huge and complicated as an entire country's economy? It sounds almost impossible, right? Well, that's exactly the big question we're going to tackle today.
You know how it is. You turn on the news, and one day you hear the economy is booming, and the next day it's headed for a downturn. It can get really confusing. So, how do we cut through all that noise and get a straight answer? How do we really know if our economy is healthy?
Well, the best way to get a clear picture is to think of it like a doctor giving the economy a full checkup. And the special field that gives us all the right tools for the job, that's called macroeconomics. And macroeconomics isn't just a bunch of boring charts and figures. It's really the science of understanding how a whole national economy works, its structure, how well it's performing, and even how government policies can nudge it in one direction or another. It's basically our doctor's manual for this big economic checkup. So just like a doctor checks your vital signs, your pulse, your blood pressure, macroeconomists look at a few key indicators. Things like, how much is the economy growing over the long run? What are the unemployment levels? What about inflation rates? Each one of these is a clue, telling an important part of the story. But out of all those vital signs, there's one that gets all the attention. It's the big one, the headline number you always hear about, gross domestic product. You probably know it as GDP. So, what actually is GDP? In a nutshell, it's a single number that represents the total market value of all final goods and services produced inside a country during a specific time. And I mean everything, from brand new cars and iPhones all the way to things like haircuts and visits to the doctor. It's basically the economy's ultimate bottom line. Okay, so how in the world do they calculate that single massive number? Well, economists actually have three different ways to do it. And here's the really cool part. In theory, all three methods should give you the exact same answer. They're just looking at the same thing from different angles. So what are these three paths? You've got the product approach, which is basically what did we make? Then there's the income approach, what did we all earn? And finally, the expenditure approach, which asks, what did we all spend? We're going to focus on that last one, the expenditure approach, because it really gives the clearest, most intuitive picture of where all the money in the economy actually goes. All right, let's build this famous formula out piece by piece. The first and biggest part by a long shot is consumption. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's all the spending by households, that's you and me, on pretty much everything, from your morning coffee to a new TV. Next up, we have investment. Now, this is really important. We're not talking about buying stocks and bonds here. In macroeconomics, investment means something specific. It's what businesses spend on new factories, equipment, and buildings. It also includes something kind of interesting, changes in their inventory. The stuff they've made but haven't sold just yet. Then, of course, we have to add in government purchases. This is all the money the government spends on currently produced goods and services. Think about things like building new roads, paying for the military, or the salaries of public school teachers. And the final piece of our puzzle brings in the rest of the world. It's called net exports. And it's a pretty simple calculation, actually. You just take the total value of a country's exports, that's everything we sell to other countries, and you subtract the total value of imports, everything we buy from them. And there you have it. You add up consumption plus investment plus government purchases plus net exports, and that equals Y, which is just the symbol economists use for total GDP. This one famous little equation gives us a perfect snapshot of all the spending happening in an economy. Okay, so we've got our big number, GDP. But hold on, our economic checkup isn't quite finished. We have one more really crucial step to take to make sure our diagnosis is accurate. We have to ask, is the economy really growing and producing more? Or are things just getting more expensive? And this is such a critical question. I mean, think about it like this. Let's say your local coffee shop's revenue doubles. Is that because they sold twice as many cups of coffee? Or did they just double the price of a latte? See? A rising GDP number can be totally misleading if it's just being pushed up by inflation. So to solve this problem, economists have a trick. They use two different measures. The first is nominal GDP. That's the one calculated with current prices, so it's got all that inflation baked right in. But the one we really care about for measuring growth is real GDP. This one cleverly strips out the effect of price changes by using prices from a fixed point in the past, a base year, and that tells us if we're actually producing more stuff. So how do they make that adjustment? They create something called a price index. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. They take a consistent basket of goods, like in this simple example, just honey and milk, and they compare how much that basket cost in a base year versus how much it costs today. That difference gives them a measure of inflation, and they can use that number to adjust nominal GDP and get our real GDP. And this whole real versus nominal thing applies to your own finances too. That interest rate you see advertised by your bank, that's the nominal rate. But your real return, the actual increase in your buying power, is that rate minus the rate of inflation. So think about it. If your savings account is paying you 3% interest, but inflation is running at 4%, you're actually losing purchasing power. All right. So we've taken the economy's pulse for right now, but any good doctor is also thinking about long-term health, right? So what's the key to making sure an economy stays strong and healthy, not just today, but for years and years to come? Well, it pretty much boils down to one word: saving. Yeah, you can think of national saving as the country's long-term wellness plan. It's the part of our total national income that we don't spend on our immediate needs. Instead, it's what we as a whole nation set aside to invest, to build a more productive and prosperous future for ourselves. So, what happens to all that money we save? Where does it go? Well, it becomes this absolutely vital resource. It's used to fund new investments by businesses, it's used to help finance the government's budget, and it helps balance our trade with other countries. To put it simply, without saving, there's just no fuel for future growth. It's that important. So, there you have it. You now have the basic toolkit for an economic checkup. You know that GDP is the main vital sign. You get why it's so crucial to adjust for inflation to see the real picture. And you know that saving is the foundation for long-term health. Which leaves us with a big question, doesn't it? Now that we know the score, what does it actually take to build a healthier economy for tomorrow?